Good morning, Africa, and welcome to this Friday edition of Africa Good Morning. We will be bringing you the latest in news stories from the African continent and beyond. My name is Glenora Shipura, and this is Diana Master.
A very happy Friday to you, Africa. Glenn, whatever happened to that trip to the zoo that you promised me?
I promised?
Yeah.
Okay, end of the month, promise.
He's been saying this for the last 2 years. But anyway, today is Zoo Lovers Day, and a zoo is a great excuse to get your family together and go for a trip to see the exotic animals of the world. Zoos have a long history of bringing strange and mysterious new animals from the far-flung and mysterious regions of the world straight into the heart of civilization. Where else are you going to see prowling lions, playful monkeys, and majestic elephants outside of the depths of the savannah? Yes, of course, the zoo. Let's take a look at Zoo Lovers Day.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at our latest news stories. Somali president and MP clash over presence of AU envoy. Now, Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hassan Roble yesterday ordered the expulsion of the African Union representative in the country. The move triggered a new row with President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, who called the decision illegal. Now, the two Somali leaders have regularly clashed in recent months, fueling a political crisis that is delaying the organization of the presidential election expected for more than a year in a country plagued for more than a decade by the Islamist insurgency of the Shabab. Now, Mohamed Hassan Roble's office said in a statement Thursday morning that it was declaring Francisco Madeira persona non grata for engaging in acts inconsistent with his status as a representative of the African Union Commission, ordering him to leave Somalia within 48 hours. Now, hours later, President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed objected to the statement. The president has not received any complaint about interference in his sovereignty and does not approve of any illegal action against Ambassador Francisco Madeira, a statement from the presidency said. Now, recalling that Farmajo is the custodian and guarantor of the country's sovereignty, the presidency said he has instructed the foreign minister to convoy the federal government's apology to the AU for the illegitimate and reckless decision of an unauthorized department to do so.
Burkina Faso's ex-president freed from detention. Burkina Faso's ousted president Roch Kabore has been allowed to return to his home in the capital, Ouagadougou, the military government said in a statement. Mr. Kabore was under house arrest in a ministerial villa in the capital since January when he was ousted in a coup led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, who is now the head of state. His party confirmed to the BBC that he had been freed without giving further details. The announcement of his release comes after weeks of consultations. It also follows calls by the international community for his freedom. The government added that the measures were being taken to ensure his safety.
In our next story, or rather good news for us women, the Kenyan-based doctors designed a device to ease menstrual pain. A team of medical experts in Nairobi, Kenya has designed an innovative device that helps ease menstrual pains. NTV Kenya said Wednesday that the device, which is already in circulation at a moderate price, has leads that are connected to some sticky pads called electrodes, which help deliver small electrical impulses to the painful area of a woman's body and subsequently ease the pain. Now, one of the leading innovators of the device, who is also the chief executive and co-founder of Swift Wellness, Peter Arena, said watching his friend struggle with menstrual pain prompted him to devise a solution. Now, according to the innovators, the electrical impulses are capable of reducing the pain signals going to the spinal cord and brain, which may help relieve pain and relax muscles. It explains that besides disrupting the pain pathway to the brain, the electrical stimulation also stimulates the production of endorphins, the feel-good hormones which relieve pain and boost moods.
Very good news indeed. Moving right along, in Johannesburg, one killed amidst insecurity protests in north of Johannesburg. A man was killed by protesters denouncing the inaction of the authorities in the face of violence and crime in a Johannesburg township, the South African police announced on Thursday. According to the public channel SABC and other media, the victim is a Zimbabwean immigrant. The murder comes amid growing popular anger over high crime rates, sometimes directed at immigrants accused of fueling them. Protests began Wednesday in the township of Diepsloot after it was announced that 7 people had been killed there last weekend. Residents, angry at the police for allegedly refusing to attend to one crime scene, marched through the streets with chants and placards, burning tires and camping outside the local police station. In the evening, a small group of protesters went door to door checking residents' IDs, said police spokeswoman Brenda Muridili. As they arrived in front of her house, a young man got out and ran away, she said. They chased him and unfortunately he was killed. Crime in South Africa, one of the world's most violent countries, worsened further at the end of 2021, reaching 74 murders and 122 rape complaints per day.
Now, in our next story, a win for Nigerian women on public office quota. Now, a Nigerian court has ordered the government to enforce the country's gender policy, which stipulates that 35% of appointments in public offices be reserved for women. Justice Donatus Okorowo's ruling has been hailed by rights campaigners. Now, Nigerian women groups have been calling for more women representation in political and appointive positions. Activist Mufalijit Hijab, who was present during the ruling, told local media that she was happy with the judgment. This comes as Nigerian lawmakers are expected to vote again on 3 of the 5 rejected gender equality bills this week. Parliament rescinded its decision last month after women groups held protests across the country.
After the break, we'll be back with more news. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's continue with our top stories. Ethiopian children drop out of school. Children in Ethiopia are dropping out of school in drought-stricken areas as they are forced to leave their homes and seek refuge. According to statistics, more than 400 schools have been closed and 727 are only partially open. The UN is on the ground trying to set up a system to provide protection and education to the children. More than 500,000 children have dropped out of school, so we are trying to set up a system that is called Betty, that is an education and protection center where children can go. They can get basic education there and they can also get psychological assistance and protection assistance, announced Gianfranco Rotisliano, UNICEF's representative in Ethiopia. Nearly 7 million people in the drought-hit regions are affected after a third failed rainy season devastated herding communities. According to the UN, worst affected regions such as the Somali and Oromia regions saw an increase of 20% in cases of severe acute malnutrition.
In our next story, Malawi journalists arrested for exposing Top Corp's alleged shady deal. Now, a veteran investigative journalist in Malawi was jailed this week for failing to reveal his sources, while authorities in Ethiopia released 2 reporters after 4 months in detention. Now, Malawian journalist Vitus Gregory Gondwe was arrested for refusing to disclose sources relating to a story published on his platform for investigative journalism. Now, the story alleged that the country's Inspector General George Kayinja paid 1.3 billion Malawian kwacha for a contract belonging to a businessman, Zuneta Sata, despite it being under a restriction order from the country's Anti-Corruption Bureau. Now, this was despite the country's Access to Information Act offering protection to whistleblowers for disclosure of information which the person obtained in confidence in the course of that activity if the disclosure is of a public interest. Now, in a statement, the Southern African Editors Forum said Gondowe was arrested for doing his job and for upholding media ethics, a sanctity part of ethical conduct, which is not to disclose one's sources under any circumstances, including when subpoenaed by the courts. Now, journalism is not a crime, as AEF said, while also raising concern over the government's conduct towards the fourth estate in one of Southern Africa's functioning democracies.
Rural arid Africa sits on water it cannot reach. 2 studies last month touted groundwater as an answer to water shortages in sub-Saharan Africa, a potential lifesaver for millions in a region expected to be one of the hardest hit by climate change. Water locked in subterranean stores could help African countries survive at least 5 years of drought, according to research by WaterAid and the British Geological Survey. A United Nations report said it could transform agricultural development in the region where only 3 to 5% of cultivated land is irrigated. Senegal is home to an underground aquifer that rainfall has kept well stocked in recent decades, BGS data shows. Hydrogeologists trained at locating groundwater are in short supply, experts say. If water is found, some of the most reliable aquifers can be 400 meters down, 10 times the depth of the Tata Batili wells. Drilling a hole that deep costs about $20,000. Global water experts and leaders gathered in a modern conference center in Senegal's capital, Dakar, last month, calling for better access to drinking water for those who live beyond the reach of piped water networks. That same week, residents in Tata Batili, over 700 kilometers away in the arid northeast, were digging pits in a dry riverbed a few kilometers from the village and collecting the brown water that seeped into them. Children gulp it down even though it makes them sick.
Health response to cholera outbreak in Cameroon shows results. After many deaths, the health response to the cholera outbreak in Cameroon is bearing fruit. The cholera unit at the BU hospital has seen an influx of cases in recent weeks, according to the director. The situation is stabilizing. Now, the situation here has indeed stabilized. We have had many cases. We have had a cumulative 350 cases of patients who have been treated following this disease, and among them we have had 6 deaths from cholera. At the moment, we have 9 patients hospitalized because we released some of them this morning. Now, despite the downward trend, patients are still flocking in. Moreover, the maternity unit has been transformed to accommodate serious cases. As for the disease, it persists because of the population's denial of its existence. Head of the cholera unit at Tiko Hospital, Dr. Megete Eposi, explains. Now, at the beginning, many people believed in the idea that cholera does not exist, but when the epidemic really started to grow, not only in Tiko, when they learned that there were deaths in Biu, Limbe, they started to believe in the existence of cholera. Another cause behind the outbreak is the glaring lack of toilets and drinking water for the population.
Moving over to Rwanda. Rwanda marks 28 years since the 1994 genocide. Rwanda is holding a subdued memorial at the Kigali Genocide Memorial for the 1994 genocide that left about 800,000 Tutsis and Hutu moderates dead in just 100 days. Similar events are being held at sites across districts, but they have been restricted to not more than 2 hours. Rwanda has been holding low-key memorials of the genocide following the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. Previously, the government held week-long events to commemorate the genocide. This year, the famous Walk to Remember and night vigil at the Kigali main stadium have been suspended to limit the spread of COVID, the government said. The genocide was sparked by the death of Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu, when his plane was shot down above Kigali airport on 6 April 1994.
We'll be back with a conservationist and wildlife crime investigators report. More on this right after the break.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag payback the money.
Welcome back. Now, conservationist and wildlife crime investigator Carl Aman interviews spokesperson of the Environment Ministry on several issues surrounding Namibia's decision to auction 170 elephants, of which 57 were sold and 22 exported to the UAE thus far. Let's take a look at this video.
He's actually a good friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time, and I cannot get answers from him now, which makes me pretty suspicious, because I've talked to several people, including the former CEO of the Dubai Safari Park, and he said he knew from the very beginning that an elephant exhibit was going to be an absolute must to that design, and there were going to be elephants in that design, and they needed elephants. They are part of the European Association of Zoos and Aquariums, so the normal way to get them would have been to go to EASA and say, can we exchange some elephants for you? But EASA has very few good breeding herds of elephants, so they wouldn't have given their park in charge. Alain is also part to it. They wouldn't have given them elephants. So they knew early on. Also, Alain, I'm told, was the same executive who said, I knew from 2018 or 17 that Alain started building a facility for elephants, and they wanted elephants. So this demand for these elephants has been there for quite a few years. So it's kind of surprising, and if I may so, kind of suspicious, that suddenly in 2019, 2020, Namibia found a reason to have to capture elephants to send to the UAE. My personal assessment is the demand existed for these elephants. Somebody managed to turn the demand characteristic into a supply characteristic. We need a reason to supply, and suddenly there were all these problem elephants creating all this havoc, which needed to be sent out, or otherwise they would be, cropped or whatever. So we're going to save them by sending them. So when did you hear, or when did the ministry first get approached for live elephant, wild-caught elephants exports to the Middle East?
I should tell you that first of all, for that logic or that idea to materialize, then the elephants themselves must be in the plot, because they need to cause damages so let me start by saying there's no plot. There was no plot with the UAE with Namibia to have this demand for elephants in the UAE met, and us being the suppliers. There was no such a thing. And also, there was no engagement between the Namibian government and the UAE government on the provisions of these elephants before the tender for auctioning these elephants was out. And also, if at all there was such a need, then we wouldn't have gone through what we call a public tender. And remember, we had put on that tender 170 elephants initially, and so far we only got 53, 57 of those elephants successfully auctioned. So again, if you look at it, it's logical. It is something that we did not really achieve the goal that we wanted to achieve, which is to auction of 170. But also, if we had already engaged the UAE authorities, then the numbers will be correlated. We will be like, okay, the UAE needs only 22, then we'll only do 22, for example. So I think these are theories that exist, and people are allowed to think like that. But in reality, there hasn't been any engagement between the Namibian government and the UAE government in terms of auctioning these elephants. I should also, I've mentioned that the auctioned elephants, especially the ones that were exported, were in a private capacity completely, with no engagement of government apart from issuing the necessary permits. Again, if at all there is any evidence that points to corruption, that evidence should be brought forward. We have institutions here that deals with such kind of incidences, because this is not something that the government would sanction, that staff members in their individual capacities pocket from such transactions. So if there's any evidence that points otherwise to that, then it should be presented for authorities to deal with it. But as far as we are concerned, this was a legitimate tender that went out and called out for people who were interested. And I should also mention that we would have preferred that Namibians and Africans with elephant range lands to really bid for these elephants. But unfortunately, the people that we got were only to export these elephants, and only a few to remain in the country.
This is how, I will ask more questions. I'm expecting to hear from Corn Browers, who designed the park. When were these elephants first desired or needed, and when was it decided they couldn't get them from a captive setting? Who was responsible to go for them to look in a wild setting? But when you're talking about syndicates in the context of poaching, I've done quite a bit on wildlife trade. There's syndicates in wildlife trading as well, which are not very different from the syndicates in poaching. So, as I said, the theory would be that Elske Berger has exported elephants from Zimbabwe before to Dubai, and we know the prices there. And we know how that was done when this deal fell apart. She exported them. We know that she has been working with Marissa Grobler, who seems to be a Namibian lady based in Dubai, involved in the wildlife trade. We know her father used to be some kind of a big shot in this ministry. So the theories, which needs to be explored, I don't say there's any evidence that somebody came and said, look, there's going to be demand for quite a lot of elephants in the UAE. How do we get our hands on these elephants? And somebody said, yes, we really have a problem with some elephants in our area. Let's create this nice story of having to capture problem elephants so we can satisfy this demand. And some people in the process made a lot of money. and it was in Namibia.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag #paybackthemoney.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. In our next story, sadly, a young Namibian boy from Luderet, Spencer Mandela Nakale, has been missing for close to 18 months. His bereaved parents have not lost hope for answers, despite the anguish of not having him by their side. Here is the latest, plus excerpts from an interview from last year, compiled by Yana Marie Smith. Let's take a look at this video.
Spencer Mandela Nakale vanished without a trace more than 1 year ago on 28 December 2020. That day changed the lives of his bereaved parents, Julia and Nelson, forever. The police's efforts to trace Nelson and to find out what happened to him have been fruitless. Heartbroken mother Julia recently confirmed to news outlets that she had consulted a South African psychic. The psychic, who published her findings on her Facebook page under Unsolved Cases hosted by psychic medium Diva, concluded that Nelson is no longer alive. A sketch she prepared of the alleged location of his body has been provided to the police. In an interview with Julia Nelson conducted late last year, the couple shared their anguish and their sincere wish for answers, but most of all for their son to come home. Here is a recap of that interview.
Since December, everything just went down. Like I don't even know what is the meaning of life anymore.
And since that day, my life is normal. I'm no more the person I used to be. It really affects me emotionally. But I need to be strong so that I can fight until I see my boy again.
For those months, it's just, I feel empty inside. I'm just there filled with anger, pain, heartache, regret. That's all that has been going on.
I really, really miss him and I need him by my side.
Some days I feel like maybe he's still somewhere and one day he will come back. Other days, I don't know. I just feel like maybe this is the end of it, or I don't know.
I just wish to get a gift of me to see him again. That is all I wish. I wish to see him and hug him, because this thing cannot go on just like that. I still have a hope that one day I will meet him because this I'm a Shivambo speaker. In Shivambo, they said "omunu ihakana" means that the person can never disappear without any trace. We have to find him, because the kid does not only belong to a parent, like to a father and mother, but to the community and to the public also. Spencer is my boy, but he's also a Namibian. We must protect our people, our kids.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, me and Diana were just speaking that how cold it has become past couple of days, and we might need to be bringing our coats. Now, on that note, let's take a look at the weather.
Now in this next video, we will be taking a look at a report which presents the first global assessment of food insecurity and malnutrition for 2020 and offers some indication of what hunger might look like in 2030 in a scenario further complicated by the enduring effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. It also includes new estimates of the cost and affordability of healthy diets and provides an important link between the food security and nutrition indicators as well as the analysis of their trends. Let's take a look.
Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, the world was not on track to end world hunger and malnutrition in all its forms by 2030. Under the shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic, up to 161 million more people were facing hunger in 2020 than in 2019. New figures estimate that between 720 and 811 million people around the world faced hunger in 2020. The prevalence of undernourishment increased this past year to reach a level of 9.9%. Around 660 million people may still face hunger in 2030, in part due to lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on global food security. This represents 30 million more people than in a scenario in which the pandemic had not occurred. More than half the world's undernourished are found in Asia. An additional 1/3 reside in Africa. Globally, 2.37 billion people did not have access to adequate food in 2020, an increase of nearly 320 million people in 1 year. Globally, malnutrition in all its forms also remains a challenge. In 2020, 149.2 million children under age 5, or 22%, were affected by stunting and 6.7% suffered from wasting. The actual figures are expected to be higher due to the effects of COVID-19. 38.9 million children under 5, or 5.7%, are overweight. In 2019, the high cost of healthy diets combined with income inequality caused healthy diets to be too expensive for around 3 billion people, a number expected to increase for 2020. In this environment, food systems transformations aimed at bolstering food security and nutrition are more important than ever before. Major drivers negatively affecting food security and nutrition include conflict, climate variability and extremes, and economic slowdowns and downturns. When food systems transformations focus on fostering greater resilience to these drivers, food systems can better provide affordable and healthy diets that are sustainable and inclusive. 6 transformation pathways, tailored to their specific context, will help us emerge from the shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic. And such a transformation can be a powerful driving force towards ending hunger, food insecurity and malnutrition in all its forms for all.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. We now take a look at our economic news. Now, in our first story, Visa opens its first Africa Innovation Hub in Kenya. Now, global digital payments giant Visa has opened an innovative studio in Kenya, the first in Africa to expand its reach in the region. Now, the studio will bring together developers, Visa's internal and external clients, and other partners to co-create payment and commerce solutions. Opening of the hub in Kenya is a strategy to capture markets as consumers switch to new payment platforms and digital wallets that could bypass the card networks or slow their revenue growth. Now, last year, Visa partnered with Kenya's largest telco, Safaricom, to allow the firm's 150,000 mobile money M-Pesa merchants to accept card payments. Now, the Nairobi studio is the first in Africa and 6th globally after posts in Dubai, London, Miami, San Francisco, and Singapore. Senior Vice President and Head of Visa in Sub-Saharan Africa, Aida Diarra, said the studio will assist in increasing Visa market in the region by issuing digital and physical Visa to its clients. Sub-Saharan Africa is a fast-growing region with a tech-savvy population, and as we continue to grow digital payments adoption in the region, our aspiration is to deepen our collaboration with clients and partners in developing solutions that are designed around the unique needs of Africa, said Diarra. Now, as a brand built on technology, Visa has driven the major technology advancements that make electronic payments what they are today. We are confident that the Innovation Studio will continue the legacy and cement Sub-Saharan Africa's position as a leader in creating out-of-the-box solutions to deal with our most pressing challenges as a region.
Moving over to Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe introduces a new 100 Zimbabwean dollar note as monetary woes persist. As industry and economic experts press for official dollarization of the economy, Zimbabwe is to introduce a new 100 Zimbabwean dollar denominated note, the highest bill in circulation in its economy. The new note comes as local currency prices of goods and commodities are galloping and adds onto existing bills. There has, however, been little cheer to the announcement of the new bill amid fears that the country is spinning back into hyperinflation. President Emmerson Mnangagwa's administration insists that the economy will not fully dollarize, while the IMF is urging for exchange rate liberalization. Concerted efforts are needed toward greater exchange rate flexibility by allowing a more transparent and market-driven price process. Directors called on the authorities to phase out exchange restrictions and multiple currency practices as soon as conditions permit, the IMF said in a recent country note on Zimbabwe. But with inflation remaining elevated at 72% for March, prices have been rising, with supermarkets including Pick n Pay and OK Zimbabwe forced to frequently adjust their pricing. Lower denominated notes have also started to occasion transacting challenges.
In our next story, Somaliland demands $2 billion appeal after market inferno. The Somali region of Somaliland launched an international appeal on Wednesday for $2 billion to urgently deliver humanitarian and livelihood support. Now, the appeal comes after a huge fire destroyed the main market in the capital, Hargeisa, wiping out an estimated 5,000 small, medium and large family businesses and therefore devastating the local economy. Somaliland President Musa Bihi Abdi said in a statement that the fire had caused losses estimated at $2 billion or around 60% of the country's gross domestic product. Its GDP in 2020 was just over $2.9 billion, shrinking 3.1% from the previous year, largely because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to official figures. Now, Somaliland declared independence from Somalia in 1991, but the move has not been recognized by the international community, leaving the region of about 4 million people.
Namibia personal taxes inattentive to inflation. This year will be Namibia's 10th year without any change in personal income tax tables, drawing into the tax net cleaners, gardeners and security personnel who have over the recent years received minimal inflationary increases. Anyone who earns taxable income of 50,000 Namibian dollars a year is eligible to pay tax. By not adjusting the tax rates, those with low incomes now share the minimal remaining net pay between the taxmen and the ever-increasing price of goods and services. The last adjustments to the tax tables were made in 2013 when Sarah Kugongelwa Amadila was the finance minister. Not only is this a problem for some of the individuals who now have to sacrifice part of their pay increase to shield them against inflation, but also for Treasury because the rigid tax regime has probably led to Namibia not maximizing benefits that it could derive from personal taxes. In his 2022 to 2023 national budget speech, the South African Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced that tax rates were going to be adjusted, while Namibian Finance Minister Ipumbu Shimi only said the Treasury was considering adjusting corporate tax without mentioning individual taxes. The IMF recommends personal taxes as a means to raise funds for expenditure and development. This can be done by either taxing the rich more or reducing tax rates for those at the bottom. This, according to the fund, has worked in many economies. The IMF bases its recommendation on the fact that personal taxes only make up about 9% of the gross domestic product globally.
Now, next up, let's take a look at our economic indicators.
Welcome back. Now, if you've been waiting for sports news, fear not, for Ari Gogad has all the latest news in sport. Let's take a look.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sport, and start off with soccer news. It is the European Champions League that continued the quarter-final games. The first leg games that was played, two games played. The first one, it was Villarreal that had a good win against Bayern Munich, the strong German team. Villarreal played at home, and they won that game by 1-0. The other game was Chelsea that played at home against Real Madrid, and it was Chelsea that really battled at the moment. They lost that game by 3-1. The second leg of this quarterfinals will be played next week, Tuesday, the 12th of April. There's also an English Premier League result from midweek that I can mention. That's Burnley that beat Everton by 3-2. And it is Chelsea they've got a challenge that in the sense that they don't have a good form at the moment, and in the English Premier League they also need to try and protect their top 4 position to be in the Champions League again next year. So the next game for Chelsea in the English Premier League this coming weekend will be away to Southampton. At the moment, they're in third position after 29 games. They've got 59 points. That's in the English Premier League. And 2 places behind them in fifth position, challenging the top 4 position, is Arsenal. Also played 29 games, and they've got 54 points. And now for some tennis news, and it's Wimbledon news. Wimbledon only starting the 27th of June later this year, but it is the Wimbledon organisers that is consulting with the British government, and that is whether to allow Russian and also Belarus players to compete in Wimbledon this year or not. And obviously that is linked to the Russian invasion into Ukraine. At the moment, the Russian and Belarus players are playing under neutral flags. They're allowed to play in the ATP and WTA tours. And the 3 men, there's 3 men that is quite highly seeded that will be in contention to win Wimbledon. Definitely Daniil Medvedev. He's the number 2 in the world at the moment. And also number 6 is Andrei Rublev. He's also from Russia. And then number 25 in the world is Grigor Dimitrov. So those 3 might not be able to compete in Wimbledon. It all depends on the negotiations or the discussions between Wimbledon organisers and the British government. On the women's tour, there's not any players in the top 10. The highest ranked player is 14th, and that is Anastasia Palakanova, and she is at the moment number 14 in the world. And now on to some golf news, and it is Masters week, and the final round of the Masters will be played on Sunday. That's in Augusta in Georgia. News from the tournament was that Phil Mickelson was in the news. He, of course, he indicated that he's taking a break from all PGA events. That is because of personal reasons. He played in the last 28 Masters tournaments, and it was Masters chairman, that is Fred Ridley, that made an announcement. He said that Phil Mickelson was not pressured by the Masters not to play. This all is related to the Saudi Arabian League, the Super League that is planned, quite controversial at the moment, and Phil Mickelson is linked to that. And also Phil Mickelson also was criticized. He criticized the Saudi Arabian government because of the human rights policies, and but he did apologize after that. So there is pressure on Phil Mickelson at the moment in the world of golf, and he decided he's going to take a break from golf because of personal reasons. The final round, like I say, of the Masters will be played on Sunday at Augusta in Georgia, and Tiger Woods still confirmed to be playing in the tournament. And now to conclude, it is time for hockey news. It is the Women's Junior World Cup that's being played at the moment in Potchefstroom in South Africa. And news from the tournament is that 4 teams was unbeaten in the round robin before the quarterfinals. Those were Netherlands, also England, Argentina and India. And they all through to the quarterfinals. And Argentina, the defending champion, and Argentina play in the quarterfinals, a tough game for them. They play against Germany. And the other 3 quarterfinals that will be played is India, that will play against Korea. Then the Netherlands will play against the host South Africa. And it is England that will play against the USA. So with that, I conclude with the international sports news. Hope you have a great day, and we talk again international sport tomorrow. Goodbye.
That's it for our sports news. Now here's a recap of what happened earlier in the show. Somalia, President and PM clash over the presence of the AU envoy. Burkina Faso ex-president freed from detention. Kenyan-based doctors design device to ease menstrual pain. 1 killed amid insecurity protests in north of Johannesburg. Win for Nigerian women on public offices quota. Visa opens its first Africa Innovation Hub in Kenya. Those have been your highlights.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday morning, marking the end of the week. Now, do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and on our DSTV channel 285 and our Gotv channel 94 between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. every weekday. Now, also, if you happen to have any comments regarding our program, do share them with us on our Facebook and Twitter pages. And if you happen to also have videos or videos or photos of happenings in your parts of Africa, do share them with us and we'll gladly include them in our program. I am Glenn Rashipura and this is Diana Master.
We wish you a lovely weekend.